Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi and welcome. You might have noticed the background has changed. I decided I hate the audio in the other videos that I made before, so we're trying something new. We're experimenting a little bit. Yesterday was a complete disaster. I tried to do this before already and wasted a whole 12 hours recording something that went in the trash. And so we're here. I broke my ring light and tripod. I currently have you propped up in the windowsill, and I'm kind of appreciating a little bit of the natty light, natural light. So let me know if the audio is better where I have moved things, and I really am hoping it is. We're still in the experimenting phase. This is still so new to me, so things are probably going to be changing as we go on. They'll continue to change. But all that aside, I'm happy to sit down again and, kind of redo this. We're doing a series called Talking Tarot, where we talk all things tarot. This is the 6th installment, the 6th video in the series. We're talking today about the Page of Wands. Last week we talked about the Page of Cups and how he relates to our inner child. We touched upon, a little bit of shadow work, developmental psychology a little bit. And now I kind of want to touch on the page as an archetype of our passions and desires. So, reminding ourselves that the page is a child, and children are new to the world. They represent our youthfulness, and from that we can deduce that the page represents a new beginning, a blossoming or growth, the discovery of a passion or that creative spark. So in an effort to understand the Page of Wands a little better, let's analyze some of the themes that come up. So as far as that goes, some of the more obvious ones are, like I said, passion, creativity. Some of the less obvious are that of enthusiasm, action. Those are just a couple basic fire element correspondences. It's just a side note, but I think it's an important addition to the meaning of the card, even if this is something that you don't see in all tarot decks across the board, but we're referring to the Rider-Waite here. In the original Pictology of the Rider-Waite, there's a salamander at the bottom of the card in the Page of Wands, and the salamander pops up now and again throughout the suit of the wands. But the salamander represents fire as the element. It is symbolic of transformation. I think it's a great symbol for change, especially for the page, as growth for an archetype. And how the page is symbolic of new beginnings that could mean do-overs, that can mean another mulligan, another go at it, to rise from the ashes, ultimately, like the phoenix. So this page is different. He lives in the moment. He is constantly searching for inspiration, and he finds it in the most unlikely places, which is probably the most respectable attribute of the Page of Wands. I've heard the Page of Wands be described as a helpful friend, that person, your rock, the one that you turn to, the one always ready with advice for you in the time of need, always has your back, that friend. The one that could be either the angel or the devil on your shoulder. I've also heard of them as described as that feeling of finding your niche, finding what works. That is an important vibe of this card, but Biddy Tarot was one of the trusted resources I had when I was still kind of learning years ago, but I'm still learning. I'm not trying to kid anybody. This is an ongoing process forever, and I should hope it's the same for everyone who reads tarot. Biddy was one of my first ever sources, and I relied on them heavily in the past. I'm gonna go back to them now, actually. So Biddy describes the Page of Wands as having, quote, the gift of being able to find growth and potential in the most unlikely places. He is so energized by his ideas that he can make anything happen and isn't limited by his circumstances, end quote. So that kind of is describing what I went into before about how he's prided on his resourcefulness. And as pagans and witches out there, raise your hands, we pride ourselves often of our resourcefulness. If we had to buy every single thing to do every single thing in our craft, it would be a very expensive thing. So a lot of this is taking what you already have around and putting it to use. That's my favorite part, because I'm also a minimalist. I don't want to buy a bunch of new things all the time just to do like one ritual, But side note, to describe kind of further the vibe of this card, I want to quote the author of this article called Childhood, Philosophy, and Play, Friedrich Schiller.
Hi, hello. This is Editing Holly here. I realize actually I've mispronounced this man's name throughout the entire video, so forgive me. It's actually Friedrich Schiller. So I'm sorry. Once again, I apologize, but let's go on.
The interface between reason, passion, and sensation. It says, quote, we are like the flower that grows, blossoms, and withers. The flower itself is essence, which moves through different stages of actualization, end quote. So we are that flower. Like the page is the first beginner stage, a phase in the creative process where it represents the beginning. Before you have put pen to paper and have brought something into actualization, the idea is still in your head. You haven't brought it forth yet into tangible reality. This article references Friedrich Schiller, who I want to kind of go into his background a little bit because we're going to keep referencing him. So he was a German philosopher who lived in the late 1700s. He was best known for his philosophical concept of play drive and his philosophy, but he was also a very renowned playwright and poet, but we're talking about his philosophy, so he did have a lot of intellect to contribute, I think. We will get into this play drive later, but first I have to explain to you why all of this is relevant. In Schiller's Aesthetic Education of Man, he discusses the theory of this concept he made up of the three drives that humans have. We have first, form drive, second, sensuous drive, and third, ludic drive. So let me know if any of you have studied Schiller and aesthetics, and let me know down in the comments what you think about how I'm tying this into the Page of Wands. That would be very interesting. But I had to look up what all these meant because I don't know. Form drive, according to Schiller, is our rational nature or thinking processes. We think of Aristotle, we think of his animal rationale. Is that what he calls it? Correct me down there again in the comments. Ludic drive translates as playful drive, or the free play aspect of art as a form of aesthetic and creative freedom. The last is sensuous drive, which refers to experience and living through touch, feeling, embodiment, and generally our physical nature. So all of this is in reference to art and the philosophy of art. I'm throwing a lot of aesthetics at you. I'm so sorry, but again, point out how Skiller is the bridge between the gap of beauty and passion and reason and thought. He bridges the two together to show that we don't have to live on either extreme. We can find balance, and we can have a happy medium there where we live in moderation. So he does a really good job of intertwining how passion and reason, even though they exist at opposite ends of the spectrum, they need each other, and how we can live with both, and not only that, but kind of complement both. So the main bullet point here that I'm gonna linger on, if you will, is passion in this card. Just to kind of, go over it and kind of explore it a little bit here, so that when we go further into the Wands cards, that we don't really have to do this again. I will kind of touch upon the same things and do little refreshers as we go. It would be helpful just to kind of, we already talked about the elements, but just to explain a little bit kind of what the nuance of passion really means for the page in this card. So that's what we're going to be discussing today, is how does passion relate to the Page of Wands. T.S. Eliot said, you can no more explain passion to a person who has never experienced it than you can explain light to the blind. But I sure am gonna try. Let's begin. The Page of Wands is the epitome of our passions, the epitome of action and creativity. Taking all this information, wrapping it up nice and neat, we can go back and tie the Page of Wands to be corroborated by the creative impulse as Skiller describes it, being the mediator between structure, sensation, and spontaneity. This is all true when you look at the Page of Wands. The Page of Wands embodies passion, discovery, inspiration, actualization, and resourcefulness. The main bullet points I'm gonna linger on in this video, of course, is gonna be that of passion and actualization. So, passion is both a very strong emotion and at the same time a powerful energy that you can harness. I will touch on that later again. But to quote Barbara Weber, the same article I referenced earlier about Skiller, quote, children remind adults of a more sensuous and passionate way of being in the world, end quote. So I think that's very true, and I think that's very much so like a reminder when this card is drawn. When you see it in a spread, it's nudging you to look back and remind yourself how you were as a kid. Kids are very passionate. Kids are hands-on creatures. That's how they learn. That's how they experience the world, by touch and feel. This card nudges us to embrace that, to put that energy towards something creative or creatively productive, to do something, to do this thing with your entire soul, your entire being, completely invested, mind, body, and spirit. But since passion is the current topic of conversation, let's define what it is. So as we keep going into technicalities, we can all kind of be on the same page. So,
Same page, got it?
Merriam-Webster defines passion as 1, a strong feeling or emotion, or 2, an object of someone's love, liking, or desire. Synonyms include fervor, zeal, sentiment, and intensity. Antonyms are apathy and indifference. So I feel like that kind of gives us a pretty good understanding, to go forward at least. Hong Kiat says, quote, "When you do what you love and you do it at a moderate level, you can call it a hobby. It could be cooking, gardening, singing, in the shower, disassembling gadgets, playing with action figures, the mix. But when you go all out with it to the point that someone deems you a step short from crazy, that's passion," end quote. The emphasis here is on the discovery of that. The finding out that you're actually obsessed with something, even though you've never touched it before, played with it before. You never would have guessed that the second you try something new that you'd be immediately, this is it. Again, finding that niche, finding what works. Finding out what you're actually obsessed with is that feeling in this card. It's that new love. It's that spending all your time on it. You can't seem to put it down or leave it alone since you started. Your insatiable intrigue and devotion here is borderline obsessive. So for some people, this is art, this is painting, this is creative expression in that way. For other people, this is more of like a reason, a motivator. The reason they get out of bed every morning. And it's harder for some people than it is for others. And for some people, we do need a very good reason. My ass is not getting out of bed unless there's a very good reason. And you know what? Talking to you guys is a very good reason, so thank you. Hold on, we have to take a moment here. We have Kodakaya. Ziggy! Oh my goodness. So hello. We're in the same place for reading. I just like this angle a lot better. Almost kind of like the ring light tripod thing was breaking was a blessing in disguise almost, because now I have this, and this is a lot better of an angle to read with. So today we're reading with the Page of Wands, and I'm actually gonna do a little shuffling now that I've got them picked out. So we have the Hanged Man. This is so fun. What a fun little spread. Oh my god. I'm excited. So the Page of Wands, but we already know what we're drawing from with the meaning of the page. As a mechanical telling of the story, the page is somebody who he isn't selfish, but he's very sensuous and impulsive in that way. So kind of taking that personality type and placing it with the Devil and the Hanged Man makes for your thinking habits, your thought patterns that are kind of negative. And this is symbolic of completely changing your perspective, like turning everything that you think you know on its head, so to speak, which is why the page is shown to be like inverted. He's completely seeing things in a way that he's never seen them before. He's shifted perspective. And the Page of Wands can really use this because here we have the devil influencing us, being those negative thought patterns, being that kind of negative self-talk that we have. The devil is that, I don't want to say the devil is that trigger. The devil is that push. Like the push that sends you like spiraling. So the thing about the devil is that we are chained, right? We're chained by our negativity, our addictions. We're stuck. We're in this thing that we've built and trapped ourselves in. The only thing is, we don't know that we have the key. Like whatever binds us or we think that we're bound to, we have the key. We are able to get out if we so choose. So that's the thing about the devil card. But anyway, this is the devil on his shoulder, okay? The Hanged Man represents like the voice of reason. This is a very fucking beautiful representation of the Friedrich Schiller dynamic I was actually just talking about. This is the perfect representation of that. So the Hanged Man, if I was to relate it to, you know, formal drive, sensuous drive, and ludic drive, I would say that this Hanged Man would be formal drive here. You know, that's just it. And the Page of Wands is, as we said, you know, before, the mediator of the situation, the voice of reason, the product of what you bring, what you get when you bring the Hanged Man, aka formal drive, and the devil, aka sensuous drive. Because what do we see in the devil? We see hedonism. We see everything we talked about with the wands and its utmost toxicity. Like fire, flame, yes, spontaneity, creativity, yes, but in its most like evil form. So I think this is a very telling representation of kind of mediating the two with the angel devil dynamic on the shoulder, right? There doesn't have to be both extremes. You know, like it's possible to live in the middle here. It gives you a little discrimination against, you know, what is too much and what is too little. So when we have the voice of reason here, we can know where to draw the line. You know, the hedonistic, the devil, the hedonist inside of us still has a schedule. And you know, that's when the voice of reason comes into play here. And I'm so very blown away by this draw right here, that we can really take these cards and have very great two examples of, you know, what I was referring to when I was talking about Friedrich Schiller and his aesthetic education of man. And I'm very excited that we could, you know, really explore visually how the page exhibits all of these qualities. Is the devil for us? Is the angel for us? Whoa. Sorry, got a little excited there. So to take anything away from this is to find the middle ground again. But I think it's important to give, like, say the page is the middle ground. I think it's important to give both of these their fair playing field each. You know, like, he deserves a stand and he deserves a stand. and they need to be looked at and recognized as their own archetypes, as their own energies when we bring them together in the Page of Wands. So, as again, to tie into what I said before, how the Page of Wands represents a lot of the times in my experience at least, and this imagery is very good at telling what I mean when I say the Page of Wands represents a friend, a person who inspires you, who's there for you, someone who is really comes to your aid. And if we were to look at this, you know, it's like that Doors song, "Come on baby, light my fire." It's like that. It's someone is your inspiration, your muse, right? Like, think Almost Famous here, you know? To be a muse, an inspiration. So the page is the artist here. The muse is the bird. So I think that it's really telling it speaks to, again, finding inspiration in the most unlikely places. This is very Nikola Tesla and his pigeon, am I right? Oh my god, I just thought of that. Wow. But, you know, sometimes as artists, we feel like we have to heighten ourselves somehow. And a lot of the time that means, like, getting high or, you know, etc. Altering your state, basically. And the Hanged Man is here to be the voice of reason, to say we don't need any like substance to reach that state of full awareness, full appreciation of beauty and life and living in the moment, because what does that actually come with? Like, if you think about how alcohol affects you, alcohol is like, it dulls your senses. It doesn't brighten them. It doesn't, like, enhance your experience in the way that you'd expect. You know, when you partake, that's what your initial goal is, right? Most of the time. To enhance your experience within the moment. And completely understandable here. But this is really speaking to sobriety being that thing that's the actual experience enhanced. And it's discovering that sometimes. But anyways, I feel like you see what I mean with the angel and the devil on the shoulder. So this is a really excellent representation, and I'm so happy to have been able to show you guys it. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments about this new setup, this experimenting, you know, feeling out new areas to kind of film or whatever. So drop a comment, drop a like. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.